certainly you'll get more about this again later on. But in order to play a role in homeostasis, which is the maintenance of a relatively constant internal environment, the body first of all has to, of course, sense that some change has taken place, and then it has to bring about the appropriate response. So in the case of really any reflex, but specifically here we're talking about autonomic reflexes, the stimulus, whatever the change is, whether it's a change in pressure or temperature or pH or whatever, has to be sensed by something, which then sends in the form of action potentials the signal that something has actually happened through the afferent or sensory pathway up to an integrating center. And remember, in the first of these lectures, I said that most people, myself included, tend to focus mainly on the efferent pathway in the ANS, what's the pathway going to the effector or target organ, but that you do need to take into account also the afferent pathway. So I'm not going to really say much about it, except of course it's there and it's very important. It sends the message to some integrating center in the CNS, the brain or the spinal cord, usually, but in those days we want to talk about, and then the efferent or motor pathway, which is the one we've already been talking about, the sympathetic, parasympathetic, pre- and post-ganglionic fibers, then take the message again in the form of action potentials down to the target or the effector, the smooth muscle, the cardiac muscle, or glandular tissue, which then brings about the appropriate response. So what I'm going to do is to give you a few examples, but we'll look first of all at a little bit more closely where is the integrating center. I'm not going to say anything really about what goes on in there, but because the first lecture I'm going to treat that as a black box, things go in, magic happens, and then things come out. But the main integrating centers, the ones I'm going to focus on, are the hypothalamus up here, which is it's been described as the head ganglion of the autonomic nervous system. It's a bit of a misleading statement, or doesn't really mean all that much, but in a sense, what people are trying to get across when they talk about it is that this is sort of the top control level. So the hypothalamus is important, and it plays a role in things like temperature regulation. And I don't know if you had anything on temperature regulation, did you, in your CNS lectures? Well, probably not, usually not. And I don't know if you're going to get it anywhere else in this course, so I'm going to use that as one example, an autonomic reflex. Another important integrating center is in the brainstem, in the medulla, and I'm going to talk about temperature regulation. I'm going to talk about blood pressure regulation. That's just one of several reflexes that are integrated in that region. You will certainly get that one again in your cardiovascular lectures, but I think it's a good one to use now. And then the spinal cord itself can act as an integrating center. Again, several reflexes integrated there. And in fact, all of these you'll get again later. I'm going to focus on urination. You get that in your renal lectures, you get this in your GI lectures and the reproduction lectures. So I'm going to start actually with number 3, and then go to number 2 and number 1. And the reason for doing that is, I think it's the simplest one here, and they get somewhat more complex as we move up to higher levels of integration. So let's start with control of urination. And you need a little bit of background information here, just to set the scene. The kidneys produce urine all of the time, but we don't void it from the body all of the time. We store it, and then at certain intervals, when it's appropriate, we empty the bladder. The urinary bladder, figure number 34, is a smooth muscle structure. The kidneys would be somewhere way up here, 2 kidneys, and they're connected to the bladder by the ureters. These are smooth muscle tubes which come down behind the bladder, and then they open up, so this dotted line just means they're behind the bladder, and then they open up, and the urine which is coming all the time from the kidneys flows down the ureters and goes into the smooth muscle sac, the bladder here. The exit from the bladder is through the urethra to the outside the body, and at the point close to where the exit pathway runs, you have a ring of skeletal muscle which acts as a sphincter. It's called the external sphincter. And that external sphincter is kept tonically contracted and partially closed, so that urine, as it fills out the bladder, doesn't immediately go out through the urethra. Now, as it says down the bottom here, when there's a low volume in the bladder, then really nothing happens. To begin with, you don't even sense the filling of the bladder when there's a very small volume in it. As the volume gets bigger and bigger, you start to sense that it is getting fuller, and then there comes a point when you can't hold it anymore and it's time to get rid of it. How do you know that it's filling up? There are stretch receptors present in the smooth muscle in the bladder wall. Now, there's not just one of them sitting where I've shown it here. This is representing multiple stretch receptors present in this smooth muscle. And as the volume inside the bladder gets more and more, it's going to cause the bladder, of course, to stretch. And these stretch receptors will then send the message through the afferent pathway here to the spinal cord, to the sacral region of the spinal cord. And control of urination, or micturition is another word that's used, is largely, I said this is the simplest reflex, that's why I'm starting with it, but it's not actually that simple. Nothing in physiology, nothing in life is really all that simple. There's some controversy about the role of the two divisions of the ANS. I think most people, and what I'm saying, is that it's the parasympathetic that is certainly the major controller of urination. There is a sympathetic innervation of the bladder, but what it's actually doing is where people aren't absolutely sure. It has some other roles that we won't talk about now, and probably does not play a role in urination. So to make it simpler, I'm going to ignore the sympathetic here and just focus on what is definitely the major one, the parasympathetic. So the basic reflex, what happens in babies, young children, and animals, when the bladder gets full, they don't worry where they are or what's going on, it's empty. And the reflex that's occurring there is this: you get the stretch, message goes to the sacral region of the spinal cord, and then back through the efferent parasympathetic nerves. The parasympathetic innervate the smooth muscle of the bladder wall and cause it to contract. Now, I'm not showing pre- and post-ganglion fibers here, but remember that this is parasympathetic, long pre, short post-ganglion fibers. So the ganglia would actually be within the wall of the bladder itself. You get release of ACH, contraction of the smooth muscle in the bladder, that's going to squeeze down on the contents and push it out. At the same time, there is a decrease in the tone of the external sphincter. This is a skeletal muscle, kept tonically contracted in between body. When that tone decreases and with a sort of less contraction, then in combination with the squeezing down here and the opening out here, then the urine can be lost and voided from the body. Now, as a child gets older and they're taught, that's not the right place or the right time to get rid of your urine, then you can bring in other levels of control. Because this message of saying here's some stretch not only influences in the direct reflex, the efferent parasympathetic, but this message also goes up to the higher centers. And there's a center in the pons, and there's influences from the cerebral cortex, and you more or less have voluntary control over this whole process. So in addition to basic reflex that I've just described, you have messages coming down from these higher centers, going to the sacral region, and the external sphincter, being skeletal muscle, is under voluntary control. So the baby, the young child, can learn to control the external sphincter, so that the resulting loss of urine only takes place where and when is appropriate. And this is what I've just been saying is summarized down the bottom there. So although there are some questions still about how this all works, it's a relatively simple and straightforward system. When we move on to blood pressure regulation, it gets a bit more complicated. So let me again give you a bit of background here. The reason why we need to keep blood pressure constant, with it all, it's not constant within narrow limits. If it goes too low, then there's not enough driving force to send the blood down the body to where it's needed. If the blood pressure goes too high, it's beating away at the walls of the blood vessels and can cause damage. Those are just two of the reasons. What influences our blood pressure, this is very important and is one of the main things that you're going to be getting again in your cardiovascular lecture, so I think this should help them. It depends on how quickly the heart beats. It depends on how strongly the heart beats, so speed of contraction of the heart and how strongly the heart muscle forces the blood out of the heart, and also the size of the blood vessels into which that blood is being injected. If a blood vessel is very narrow, what's that going to do to the ease with which the blood flows through it? It's going to make it more difficult for the blood to flow through a narrow or constricted blood vessel. If it opens up, it's dilated, it's easier for the blood to flow through it. And this extremely important blood pressure equation, as it's called, tells you that the blood pressure is equal to something called cardiac output times total peripheral resistance. And I've said here, think Ohm's law. So if you've done physics, and what might be a while ago now, or maybe you're doing it now, Ohm's law tells you, at least the way I learned it, is that V equals IR. So that in an electrical circuit, the potential difference, driving force, is equal or proportional to current flow times electrical resistance. And one uses that same equation and puts in sort of physiological equivalents. Blood pressure is a driving force in the circulatory system, and that is equal to cardiac output, which is a flow, it's how much blood flows out of the heart in a certain time, times the total peripheral resistance, which is a measure of the degree to which blood vessels are constricted, narrow, which gives you high resistance, or if they're dilated, then resistance is low. And the other thing over there is also tells you that cardiac output is equal to heart rate times something called stroke volume. So cardiac output is how much blood comes out of the heart in a given time, so 1 minute. So supposing your heart rate, let's take an example, supposing your heart rate was 70 beats per minute, and stroke volume is how much comes out with each heartbeat. And let's say that's about 80 mils. Each time the heart beats, it's going to push out a certain dollop of blood of about this volume. So if you just multiply those two together, that comes out to about 5.6 liters per minute would be the cardiac output. That's where that comes from. And these terms, as I say, will come back a lot more later on. So we end up then saying blood pressure is determined by heart rate, the strength with which the heart is pumping, because that will determine how much comes out each time, the stroke volume. If the force of contraction is high, then more will be pumped out, and vice versa. And then the resistance through which it has to flow. And I think you need that background, that understanding, when we come to see, okay, what's this got to do with the autonomic nervous system? So, first of all, we have to sense a change in blood pressure. How do we do that? That's due to the presence of baroreceptors, sort of like stretch receptors, which are present in various places in the body. And I don't think you have this down there, do you? No, okay. You don't need to copy it down, it'll be in books and you'll get it later. But just to fix in your mind, these black dots that are located here and here. These represent baroreceptors. And again, it doesn't mean there are just 2 of them up here and 3 of them down here. There's several of them. In the wall, these ones here called the aortic baroreceptors are present in the wall of the largest artery where it leaves the heart. This is the aorta. And up here, these are the vessels that go up to the brain, take the blood up to the brain, and they're called carotid arteries. They divide into internal and external carotid arteries, and at this branching point, there's a sort of slightly bulging region here where they are they're called the carotid sinus baroreceptors. And all of these receptors in the aortic arch and in the carotid sinus play a role in sensing the pressure in the vessels which they are present in. And they can then send a message either to the vagus nerve or another of the cranial nerves, the glossopharyngeal nerve, which goes up to the integrating center. And in this case, remember, we're now moving on to the second example, which is an autonomic reflex, which has its integrating center up in the brainstem in the medulla. So let's take an example here of what's called the baroreceptor reflex. Let's say the blood pressure has gone too high. So what are you trying to do? You want to bring that down to some optimal value. The baroreceptors that I've just indicated, they sense this increase in pressure, because as the pressure goes up, it's going to stretch the blood vessel more, stretches these receptors, they sense this, they send action potentials up to the medulla, which is the integrating center. And then this in turn will alter the output in both sympathetic and parasympathetic pathways. So regulation of blood pressure definitely involves both major arms of the ANS. And at this point, I find it easiest not to try and memorize what exactly happens, which goes up, which goes down, what does it do, but first of all jump to the end and say, what are we trying to do? And then work back and say, well, how can we achieve the desired aim? The blood pressure is too high. We're trying to bring it down. Remember that blood pressure from that equation that I've just given you is heart rate times force times resistance. So what the autonomic nervous system has to do is to decrease these values, make the heart beat more slowly, make it beat less forcefully, and to make the blood vessels have a lower resistance, in other words, to get wider. How can we do that? This is where you need to, you don't need to do it right now, but if you do need to think about it in more detail, you can look at figure 29, which is that chart I gave you, the sort of summary of what the two divisions do. And say, well, how can we bring down the heart rate? Well, you should know that in fight or flight response, when the heart rate goes up, that was due to sympathetic. Sympathetic increases heart rate and increases how strongly it beats. And you can remember that because of the, that emergency situation, that's what's going to happen. So you don't want that in this case. You want the opposite. You want it to slow down. So that means you want less sympathetic activity going to the heart. The parasympathetic normally does slow down the heart, so you want increased parasympathetic activity. And this is indeed what you get. So the heart beats more slowly, less forcefully. What about blood vessels? Remember I said that innervation, autonomic innervation of blood vessels is very complex. But you can think of it as that the sympathetic innervates most blood vessels in the body and causes them to constrict. If you're wondering how can a blood vessel constrict, if you think of a cross-section of a blood vessel, there are smooth muscle cells in the wall of the blood vessels, but the blood's flowing in the center, so the blood in the center. But around the circumference of the blood vessel, you have smooth muscle cells, and they're arranged mainly in this sort of circular fashion, as you say, around the circumference. And so if those cells contract, what's that going to do to the diameter of the blood vessel? It'll get smaller, it'll constrict. So contraction of the individual smooth muscle cells makes the thing get narrow. And that is the main action of the sympathetic. But that's not what we want in this case. We don't want to increase resistance, which is what that would do. We want to do the opposite. So decreased sympathetic will cause less constriction, and in fact you get a dilation or dilatation. So rather than, I mean, it's up to you, you might want to just remember these, remembering, but if you're not into doing that sort of thing, if you want to work out why this is happening, I think it helps to jump in and then work back and see, ideally, what do you want? And in fact, that is what you get. So if you wanted to decrease blood pressure, if you started with a decrease in blood pressure and you wanted to increase it, then everything would just be the opposite. Okay, the third of these, which, as I say, I'm not sure if you are going to get anywhere else, is regulation of temperature. And again, the questions of why do we need to do this, how is it sensed, how do we actually do it, what's the role of the autonomic is summarized here. You need to keep body temperature within a pretty narrow range for various reasons. One example here, enzymes with their optimum temperatures. We have to face a large range of external temperatures in order to maintain a constant temperature. What comes in must equal what goes out. Heat gain and heat loss have to balance to maintain a constant temperature. How can we gain heat? From increasing metabolism, produces heat. How do we lose heat? We lose heat both through radiation, which means that when your skin gets warmer, more heat is going to radiate outwards, and the skin will get warmer when more blood comes to the surface of the skin. Blood carries heat, so the closer to the surface of the body it is, the more radiation you will get. And also evaporation is a way of losing heat when you sweat, and then that evaporates. That will cause cooling. And then behavioral changes, exercise, taking clothes on or off or whatever. But these are nothing very important, but nothing to do with the autonomic nervous system. And by the way, nor is shivering. Shivering is again a response to do with temperature regulation, but that's to do with skeletal muscle, not autonomic. So how do we know when the temperature's changed? There are temperature receptors. Some of them are in the skin, some of them are internal, in the hypothalamus, and they've got different sensitivities to heat and cold and so on. I'm not going to talk really about that. But we certainly do have these receptors that can sense a change in temperature. Integrating center is in the hypothalamus, and what this needs to do, how we can regulate the temperature, as I think you could guess from what I've just said, we can change the blood flow to the skin. The more the blood flows, the more heat comes to the surface, the easier it is to lose that heat. We can change the amount of sweating, evaporation, cooling, and we can change metabolism. So the question then is, how are these three associated with, or how is the autonomic nervous system associated with those changes? So it looks fairly complicated here, but let me take you through it. Okay, winter's coming along, so let's first of all look at what happens when it's too cold. Decreased temperature. It's been sensed by these various receptors either in the skin or within the hypothalamus, and the message is sent to a sort of thermostat-like integrating center up in the hypothalamus. And this will then bring about appropriate changes. And in this case, it's the sympathetic nervous system that is, as far as I know, the only one of the two divisions involved in temperature regulation. So we have parasympathetic, certainly the major, if not the only one, the urination. Both of them equally important for blood pressure, and in this case, it's the sympathetic that's the main thing. So again, I think the easiest thing to do is to jump to the end and say, what are we trying to do? What does the sympathetic need to do? Does it need to increase or decrease its activity to achieve the desired effect? We're too cold. We're trying to warm up. How can we warm up? We've decided increasing metabolism, which increases heat production. How does the sympathetic do that? Well, again, going back to figure 29 or a similar list of what the two divisions do, you can see that the sympathetic, backed up by adrenaline from the adrenal glands, so the sympathetic adrenal system, acts on many tissues and increases metabolism. So it's increasing. What else do we want our blood vessels in the skin to dilate, or do we want them to constrict? Remember, we're too cold. We're trying to conserve heat. So you want to reduce blood supply to the skin. How do we do that? Through increasing sympathetic activity. The major control of most blood vessels is the sympathetic, which causes vasoconstriction. So we've got increase going to various tissues to increase metabolism. We've got increases in sympathetic activity going to the skin blood vessels. The smooth muscle cells contract, the vessels constrict, they get narrow, less blood flows through them, less heat will then be lost. Something that's not all that important in us, in humans, but is important in many animals, birds. You see little sort of balls of fluff of birds in cold weather, or animals that look, twice their normal size when they're cold. Standing on end of the hairs in the skin. Hyoerection, or rather nice word, horriculation, means the same thing. And what causes the hairs to stand on end is contraction of smooth muscle innervated by the sympathetic. So then that's going to be increased. The hairs stand on end and then trap a layer of warm air, relatively warm air next to the skin, and this helps to prevent heat loss. Sweating, we're too cold, so we don't need to sweat. So sweat glands have decreased sympathetic activity, so less sweating and less evaporation. You can probably now predict exactly what's going to happen if we're too hot. Everything is just the opposite, so I won't go through all of this, but there's just one thing I want to emphasize here. If you are too hot, you want to decrease metabolism. You don't want the hairs to stand on end. You want to dilate your skin blood vessels so that more heat comes to the surface and you can lose the heat. And you also need to increase sweating. And I mentioned this previously, and I mentioned it again here. But this is an oddment. The sympathetic innervation of the thermoregulatory sweat glands is cholinergic. So that's, I don't know why, but it is. So ACH is the transmitter here for these sweat glands, so increased sweat. To just maybe mention in passing, you'll see this in various charts in books. The other sort of sweating that you can get, if you're very nervous or something like that, when you get sweat in your sticky palms with your hands, that's different. It's also sympathetic, but it's an adrenergic response. So sweat glands are interesting, and then some of them, depending on their role, as you would expect, have noradrenergic control, but these particular ones are cholinergic. Okay, so I've been talking for half an hour now. I'm going to get you to do a bit of thinking for the next video. Again, we're looking to see what are some of this is not really a physiological, it's more of a pathological situation. But it's useful for you, I think, to consider this through. So let me explain. It's something called Horner's syndrome. It's a rare condition, but it's useful to use as an example. What happens in Horner's syndrome is that there may be damage to the sympathetic innervation on one side of the face. It could be, somebody was in an accident or surgery or something went wrong, and the sympathetic nerve just on one side was damaged. And the sympathetic nerve, when it goes to the face, normally innervates the eye, the dilator muscle of the iris, it innervates the eyelids. Maybe a bit surprisingly, you think you can open and close your eyelids, raise and lower your eyelids, when you think about it, it's voluntary control. But there is a small, significant amount of smooth muscle also in the eyelids. Sweat glands in the face, sympathetic innervation, and also blood vessels. And in most places, a lot of sympathetic innervation. So what I'm asking you to suppose is, let's say this nerve is cut, damaged there. What's going to happen to these situations? What's going to happen in the eye, the eyelid, sweat gland, and blood vessel? I'll give you a minute or two. Do it with your neighbor if you want, and then I'll see what you come up with.
Skin, various tissues maybe?
She said something vessels. Blood vessels maybe?
Oh, I'm not sure. I should probably write that down. I don't think it'll do anything to your eyelid, though, right? Sympathetic doesn't do anything with eyelids. But
You remember like being okay, this is
this thing, but like, what does it do to your eyelid when you're like in like a fight or flight kind of situation? Do you blink a lot? Do you not blink? Maybe not, because you want to see what you're running away from, so you're like,
then you wouldn't be able to get your eyes
I'm not sure. Because your eyes dilate, right? To like see the situation better. Oh, I should write it down. Oh wait, but you're being cut. So then your eyes
You wouldn't be
are...
able to dilate one of your eyes. Because you're not at all.
Okay. I'm like, what does your eyelid do?
Yeah, actually.
I never thought the eyelid did anything.
Maybe I would kind of like sag.
But then you wouldn't be able to see. How is that going to help you when you're fighting?
It's opposite.
First of all, what's
It's
going to happen to the pupil in the eye? Yes?
Would it always stay constricted?
Constricted is the suggestion here. Any comments on that? Yeah, you're correct. Do you know what that's called? state of constriction of the pupil? No? Maybe you haven't had this. Meiosis, different sort of meiosis. So we get pupil constriction. What about the eyelid? Yes? Close, it'll drop down, droops, yes. Because think of a fight or flight situation, eyes open up wide, eyelids drawn back, go up. So in this case, you're blocking those sympathetic impulses, and the eyelid droops, and that's a condition known as ptosis, silent P, ptosis. Sweat glands. Yes? Don't sweat, right? And that's called anhydrosis. Meiosis, ptosis, anhydrosis. And finally, what about blood vessels? Let's say somebody over here. Extend it a bit more.
Blood vessels?
Yes, blood vessels.
Vasodilation.
Blood vessels dilate. Can't get a binding one for that. So if you have problems with that, the way to think about it is to think, first of all, what the sympathetic does when you stimulate it, or is activated, and then think, okay, in this case, if the impulses aren't getting through, you're not going to get these, you're going to get the opposite. So that's just what that is showing. So that was really more of an exercise, I'm not concerned with the syndrome as such, but just using it as an exercise for you to think about and to realize the sorts of things that you need to be able to work out for yourself. And I'm just going to give you maybe one, I'm not sure about the second examples of something that can go a bit wrong. And that's fainting or sympathy. There are many different causes of fainting, and the most common cause is something called vasovagal sympathy. And this is means you get what you would initially call, I think, an abnormal, or you would maybe use the word inappropriate balance or shift in the balance between the sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. So what causes fainting? All sorts of things which are different for different people, seeing nasty things, even thinking about them, heat, dehydration, pain, soldiers who are on parade standing very stiff and upright in a hot beating sun for a long period of time, and every so often they go over. So this is what's going on. Exaggerated response, and I put in inappropriate in inverted commas, because is it really inappropriate? If there's something really nasty going on and you faint, it stops you seeing it. You can think of it as either appropriate or inappropriate. Anyway, so more importantly, what's actually going on, whatever the trigger is, what it does is decrease sympathetic and increase parasympathetic, mainly to the vagus nerve, cranial nerve number 10, which is the main parasympathetic that goes to many tissues, and the integration is taking place in the medulla. So what's going to happen is your heart rate goes down, parasympathetic decreases heart rate, the cardiac output is going to go down, the blood pressure is going to go down. This is reinforced by the fact that decreased sympathetic, blood vessels dilate, resistance goes down, and again, remember the blood pressure equation, when the heart rate goes down, the cardiac output goes down, resistance goes down. These are all going to decrease blood pressure. This means that blood pressure, when it's low, cannot push the blood around to where it's needed, and particularly important here is the brain, and the decreased blood pressure to the brain can lead to loss of consciousness. Yeah?
So can it actually calm down?
It's like an exaggerated baroreceptor response, but not necessarily appropriate because your blood pressure hasn't changed initially. This is happening in the face of what initially was probably a normal blood pressure, but there's something else that's triggering, which is why it's called inappropriate. The other one, which I just hesitated about giving you, figure 42. Have you heard of myasthenia gravis? Yeah?
That's just a question for the previous speaker. I was just wondering how can people who experience nasal reactions often vomit or lose control of their urinary bladder when they faint?
Okay, a question was, if I can rephrase that, why other things such as vomiting, urination may be associated with the fainting. Are they doing this at the time they're fainted, or is this when they come round, or? Immediately before, and then they faint. Well, increased parasympathetic could affect the urinary bladder, because that's the main stimulus for increasing contraction of the urinary bladder. And also, it causes contractions in the muscle in the stomach. The gastric muscle is contracted by parasympathetic stimulation. Now, why the contents of the stomach should go up instead of the normal direction going down, I have to think about that one offhand. I can't think, but certainly those two organs that you mentioned, both smooth muscle and both are excitatory innervation from the parasympathetic division. Okay, we haven't heard of myasthenia gravis, so maybe let's ignore that. All that was saying is that if you inhibit transmission in autonomic ganglia because of some disease which causes antibodies to develop, then there's no transmission in autonomic ganglia, and essentially the whole autonomic nervous system is going to fall to pieces. It's just not going to work, and then you need to think of what some of the consequences are there. So, keeping in mind that we won't emphasize that. And then just in the last few minutes, I want to hardly say I'm going to talk about pharmacology in 5 minutes, but let me just introduce you to a way of thinking so that you can use this knowledge if and when you do a pharmacology course which talks about certain autonomic related drugs. This is just summarizing the various steps in the production, the storage, the release, the breakdown, the uptake, the action, the whole life cycle of autonomic transmitters provides points of attack, if you like, for various drugs. And there are lots of these available on the market or in development, which could be used, at least in theory, to increase or decrease the production, storage, the release, the action, etc. of the autonomic transmitters. And what I have given you in the last figure, 44, is a list of some of these drugs. Now, the first thing quickly I will say, you do not, from my point of view at this stage, need to memorize drug names. However, what you might get, and what I think is reasonable to expect you to do, you might get a question on an exam which tells you, for example, that, I don't know, drug X, so we name the drug, tell you what type of drug it is. Maybe it's a drug that, I think on here, it antagonizes ACH, muscarinic receptors. And then it could say, which of the following would you expect to occur as a result of use of this drug? So you don't need to remember, I will tell you what the drug is and the general class to which it belongs, and then expect you to be able to work out some of the consequences. So let me just quickly take a couple of examples. A receptor agonist is a drug which mimics the naturally occurring transmitter. So something like phenylephrine is an agonist for adrenergic receptors. And actually works on alpha-1, and again, you need to remember this. But I could say to you that, okay, phenylephrine is a drug which mimics the action of the normal sympathetic transmitter. What would you expect it to do? Well, you would need to know that the normal sympathetic transmitter causes constriction in most blood vessels. So you could reasonably expect that a drug which is mimicking that will do the same thing. And actually, this is part of the explanation why phenylephrine is used, or was used, and still is, in nasal decongestants. Because you're getting constriction in the blood vessels in the nose, and when those are constricted, there's less blood going to the nose, therefore less secretions being produced, because the secretions need the fluid that comes from the blood, and if you've got less secretions, then you don't get so congested. Another one, isopremolin, is acts on both beta-1 and beta-2 receptors. And there's a sort of nice little story that goes along with this. Beta-1 receptors are found mainly in the heart, beta-2 mainly in the lungs. And isopremolin was used years ago to give to people who have respiratory problems. If they've got narrowing of the airways, you can give something like isopremolin, which causes the smooth muscle in the airways to relax, the airways get wider, and it's easier to breathe. The problem, because this is a non-specific drug, well, most of them are non-specific, but this is more non-specific than most, it works not only in the airways, but it also works on people's hearts with the beta-1 receptors, and that made the heart rate speed up. So you're doing what you wanted to do in the airways, but you have this side effect in the heart. More recently, newer and more specific drugs have been produced. So, for example, terbutaline acts relatively specifically on beta-2 receptors. The interesting thing is when patients were first given a beta-2 agonist, which would make their airways dilate, is what they're trying to do. And I don't know how true this story is, but what I've heard is that some of them said, it's not working. I want my old drug back again. I don't like this new one. And the reason they said that was that they had got so used to their heart rate increasing when they took this other drug, that the new one wasn't doing that. You don't want it to do that, so it was the better drug. But to begin with, they thought it wasn't working. Okay, and then there's all other drugs which do blocking and so on. So have a look at this, think about it, think what you would expect them to do using your knowledge now of the ANS, but don't worry about the memorization. Okay, so we'll change